Testing on time. All right, there we go. Oh, there we go. So we're gonna wave at the camera again. There's Jeff and I here on board and on camera, so you can see a handsome fellow contrasted with someone who looks like me. Anyway, what's been going on this week in Pinal County? We have the Board of Supervisors meeting this week at Wednesday, and as I've said before on the show, you can stream it on your computer. Now it's all streamed at pinalcountyaz.gov, and you can watch it in real time. There was a debate forum. Oh, I should say that meeting's at 9:30 Wednesday morning, so you get to see what's going on at the county board if you like. There was a debate forum last night in Casa Grande put on by Tri-Valley Central where they were debating with LD8 candidates and the clerk of the court. So LD8 has lots of players in it. Should be a very interesting race. And the clerk of court only has two, Chad Roach, our incumbent, who's far and away the better candidate, and he's going to win easily. It was a little warm in the room, but a lot of good stuff happened. So to the LD8 candidates, good luck. The ballots are hit the mailboxes today. So if you are an early voter, which the large majority of Arizonans are, your ballot will be in your hand. So Saturday morning when you sit down with your cup of coffee, if you're undecided about any of the races, state treasurer, for instance, which we're talking about today, all of on KQCK Live, where you're watching now, you can go and see the recorded shows of Randy Pullen and who was that other guy? Oh yeah, Hugh Holman.
Oh, that's him.
He was on. Let's see. We make sure you got your mic going here. Give me a sound check again.
Can you hear me now?
Nope, not working. Let's see here. All right, give it a try now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, Jeff. So Hugh Holman and my guest today, Jeff, are the three combatants for that office, which will be very interesting as that goes. So what we're going to do today, folks, we're going to try to take some phone calls, but we're going to wait till the top of the hour, about 1:00, because I want to get all my questions answered first. And we'll see if I can handle both the phone and the board and my guest at the same time. It is a juggling contest. So welcome, Jeff Dewit. He is a successful investment professional, has devoted 21 years of his life to maximizing returns while minimizing risk in the financial markets. A nice trick if you can do it. And being a prudent custodian of the funds that were entrusted in his care, which, of course, you do have a fiduciary as an investment professional. His career has taught him that strong work ethic, focused vision, and determination to succeed are traits he will bring with him to the treasurer's office. The job of treasurer should reside with a successful and proven leader from the business and financial community and not a career politician. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I know you've been all over the state in the last 4 or 5 months. It's been exciting.
Have I ever?
Yeah, you had a nice drive down today from Northwest Phoenix, which is... You've avoided the accident on the 17 this morning, so that was pretty exciting. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
A little bit of news this week in politics that affects all of us here, which is the governor's race, which we have 6 combatants in there, 2 of which seem to be pulling away from the pack. And I have always supported Doug Ducey, as everybody can see my button here. He's got 2 endorsements this week. Ted Cruz, which I'm sure you'd like to have Ted Cruz's endorsement.
That is a huge endorsement, obviously, yeah.
For the 43% of the Republican voters who are undecided, which is amazing to me this late in the game. And this morning, Doug got the endorsement of the Sheriff Joe Arpaio. So kudos to my candidate, Doug Ducey, for that. Let's talk about state treasurer's race. Let's start off just the basic question. Jeff, why are you the best suited of the 3 to be the next treasurer of the state of Arizona?
You know, I think the best way to explain it is to say if I were to handle $100 of your money in an investment capacity, I'm required to have a securities license, an investment license. And that's the license any stockbroker has, anybody else. The job of the treasurer is to handle Arizona's investments. We have $13 billion under management, and we also handle the inflows and outflows of all the cash that goes through the office, about $30 billion a year. To do that job in the private sector, you would have to have an investment license. But it's interesting that the government doesn't place the same restrictions on itself that it places on private business, which is another topic, but something I also think is terrible. I think the government should operate under the same rules and regulations that we place on private business. So in the private sector, I'm the only one that's licensed to do this job. So because it's a government job, and it's amazing to me that anybody can run for this, and if you win the popular vote, on day one, you get handed $13 billion to invest on Arizona's behalf. And very bad things can happen. Our current state treasurer, as you've pointed out, Doug Ducey, has done a fabulous job. He's a great guy, and one of the best state treasurers we've ever had. And even before him, Dean Martin did a great job. But if you go back many treasurers, we lost $100 million in Lehman bonds. There were some things that happened that obviously pointed out that you have to have people there that know what you're doing, because when you lose hundreds of millions of dollars in bad investments, that's one of the reasons, besides the Napolitano budgets, that we don't own our Capitol buildings anymore. And so Doug Ducey really showed us, too, that someone successful in the private sector and in the business world, how well that translates to the treasurer's office. And so I not only am the only one licensed to do this of those running, but I also have had success in the private sector. I started a company, EchoTrade, that obviously grew over 14 years. We started with a dozen traders, and we grew to over 500 all exchange member licensed professional traders doing over 1 billion shares a month. And so I've had the success in the financial markets and everything that directly relates to this office. And again, I'm the only one that has the qualifications to do this in the private sector. And it's not common that people with my background and my experience come in and try to do this. We were very lucky that someone with Doug's background even wanted to do this, because he could easily go on and just make a lot more money in business and do many great things. And for him to give back and do something along these lines was obviously great. And it kind of inspired me to do the same. When he obviously now is running for governor, and so it's an open seat, I want to have that same opportunity to give back and do something good too. And I think if we keep passing the torch in this manner to really solid treasurers, we can do something great for Arizona, in the fact that this office should just be a rock. It should be an anchor where we shouldn't have to think about it. And not many people want to think about the state treasurer. Also, there's a highly contested, as you pointed out, governor's race. The attorney general's race is on the news, in the cover of the newspaper every other day, it feels like. And even the Secretary of State's race is getting hot with some other topics there. And it's just one more thing. And so it's not something that people want to think about. And one thing I like to say is, if you hear about your state treasurer in the news, usually it's a bad thing.
Unless the returns are up and everything's hunky.
True.
Right.
They don't seem to write about that very much, though.
No, well, bad news sells.
Bad news sells.
That's it. And then, a man bites, dog sells, not dog bites man.
Right.
From the standpoint of the technical side of your resume, it's pretty solid, sounds like. Tell me about echo trading a little bit. You've been criticized in some quarters, mainly by your opponents.
My opponent, yeah.
In that, for some reason, people don't, they have the idea that every investment should be completely safe and you should never lose money. Having bought Global Crossings in 2000.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
which was a highly touted stock at the time. And you were probably in the business during the .com era.
Oh, yeah.
Which was unbelievable. I mean, let's face it, it was a gold rush for stocks at that time.
It was weird back then. You're going back to late 90s, kind of. Somebody would just say we have a website, and their stock would double, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Like, wow, because they have
well, and then we forced the bubble into the real estate market very, very short. I should say the Federal Reserve in a way. Whether it was forced or not is another issue. We can talk about federal policy too, because it does impact the state.
Yeah.
But did you start your firm before the .com bubble? Because that was 14 years ago, so it would have been prior to that.
Well, I've been in the business since '92, so way before that.
So right out of school, where were you matriculated?
I went to USC. Oh. And I don't like to say that very much in Arizona. For some reason, for football reasons.
Well, that's important.
There's an animosity little bit.
Football,
I know.
Next to God here. Well, not quite as bad as Texas, but pretty close. But USC is a great school as far as business and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
And so were you a California native originally?
Originally, I was born and raised in Southern California.
Which part? I'm curious because I was a San Diego.
Orange County.
Orange County.
Which is the
heart of Republicanism.
It is.
Or used to be anyway. It's all going over to the dark side. But it's a good thing you got out and got to a state that still has the bastion of freedom and it's beating strongly. And so at USC, you majored in?
Business administration. I minored in finance.
Okay.
I also got an accounting degree. And so my whole goal, even as a kid, was to get in this business. I really wanted to be in
finance.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I tell the story in the campaign trail, and it's a very true story, that when I was roughly 7 years old, my dad taught me how to read the tables in the back of the newspaper, the stock tables.
Sure, I remember.
And he pointed out to me one day, Disney. He said, "Oh, okay, that's a good one to teach a kid, right?"
Sure.
And I remember it so clearly that the day he pointed out, it had gone to 22.5, is back when they still used fractions. And the day before, I'd been 21. And he explained to me, saying, so if you would have bought this yesterday and you sold it today, you made $1.50. Now, to a 7-year-old
that's a lot of money.
In the 70s, that's $1 million.
Yeah,
like $1.50, I could buy 3 candy bars.
Exactly right.
So that right away hooked my brain, and I started watching Disney, and then more and more stocks. And
that would have been a good one to buy too.
No kidding.
You could have rolled that one up for quite a while. Was it Robert Iger was the guy? And I'm trying to remember who was the CEO that took them on quite a good run. Anyway, and of course another one I didn't invest in.
Michael Eisner.
And then Eisner, yeah. Of course he got paid $100 million for it, so I guess he got paid.
Yeah.
So you went off with the idea. So were you in Southern California when you started your firm then?
No, I was not. I went in when I started the business in '93.
And that was where?
That was downtown Los Angeles. It was at the Smith Barney Shearson branch, which was the largest brokerage office west of the Mississippi. Had 300 brokers in one location.
Boy, I believe that brings back memories. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm sorry. So you start out as one.
I guess I could say Smith Barney now. You get hooked into what you called it at the time.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. And so you started there as just an apprentice. Or what do they call it when you're a new trader? You were new to do you start out as a broker, or where do they start you?
No, basically an assistant broker position.
Okay.
And so I started there. You assist a broker. My first desk actually was a file cabinet with a phone on it. I didn't even have a desk to sit under, and the broker was right next to me. And that's how you train. You learn from a broker. And then so I started in '92. In '93, I got my Series 7 license. And in '95,
then you can actually make trades officially, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Where you become a broker yourself. You get your own desk and all that, and you can actually put your legs under something.
Sure.
And in '95, I went to Chicago. And I know, especially when I'm 6'5", it wasn't easy. Let me tell you.
I got you.
But I went to Chicago and I traded on the exchange.
There was just this movie with DiCaprio that, what was it about the
Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah. So when you say that, I kind of get a visual. I get a real visual.
I've been so busy in the campaign trail, I have yet to see that movie.
It's basically debauchery and decadence. So
that's kind of what I heard.
Yeah, it makes everybody in that business look pretty bad. But that's not what we're talking about today. Anyway, so you got your start. You trained under someone who was an experienced broker, which is they mentor you into the business back then. Do they still do the mentoring thing? Is that how the securities business works?
Not as extensively as it used to be. I think it used to be a lot more. It was much more of a growing industry even back then too, and
the discount traders hadn't come aboard, right? The Charles Schwab and the E-Trades and all that.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, exactly. They were in their infancy.
Yeah.
And I remember back, one of the guys left our firm a long time ago to go to Schwab, and it was my first. I'm like, who's Schwab?
Sure.
Now, obviously, it's a huge thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, he saw the future.
Yeah.
But in a way, the relationship was different then because the brokerage commissions were somewhat regulated in terms of what you could charge and all that, and what you could discount and so on.
You know it well, yeah.
So you had more of a relationship with your clients that you could build over time, which now sort of exists, but not really because you have fee for service and that sort of. So you learned with a top-notch firm, basically. Right. And how long did you stay with Shearson?
I left. I went to Chicago in '95. That's the way to put it.
To the Mercantile?
The Mercantile Exchange.
Okay.
Yep.
You want to trade commodities?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I wanted to trade on the exchange floor. I really wanted to get to the heart of it.
Okay. You wanted to be on the floor.
On the floor.
Okay.
I had a choice at the time of going Chicago or New York, and New York would be to trade equities, and they do have a commodities exchange or two, the NYMEX, but I did choose the commodities route because at the time it was the place to be.
Sure.
And so I go into the Mercantile Exchange. Even I remember back the S&P futures pit was happening, and the Eurodollar pit. That's where I got was the Eurodollar pit, which was the hottest pit in the world at the time. It was the most widely traded commodity in the world, the Eurodollars, which is it's not a currency. It's not the euro currency. It's the interest rate on the dollar.
Forex exchange. It's a little different then.
Right. So it's the interest rate on the dollar. It tracks the 30-year bond.
Oh, okay, sure.
And I know I might be getting technical. I lose people if I get too technical.
Well, that's all right. Well, part of the reason that I like people having on is because I'm not a normal station. I want to know in depth some things, and I'm hoping my listeners out there in KQCK land who are getting something benefit. So we're going to go down this path.
All right,
the rabbit hole a little bit. So you're on the floor of the exchange now. First of all, I have to ask you, being that I'm from Minnesota and I hate it. One of the reasons I moved to Southern California was the weather, and love it in there and here. How did you react to that first winter in Chicago?
Oh, it was
brutal.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I had thin skin when I got there.
Sure.
In terms of how to deal with that.
Now, did you have a spouse in your life at this time?
No, I did not.
Okay, so you didn't have to come home to somebody saying, "What are we doing here?"
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
No,
you can devote your career to work, then,
right,
or your time to work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay in Chicago?
I was there I came to Arizona in October of 99.
Okay.
So I spent a couple years on the floor of the Mercantile Exchange. I became one of the youngest full members of the Merc.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I traded Eurodollar futures. And then the Eurodollar in 97, euros got slow. And believe it or not, soybeans had a real big run spring of 97. And
bad weather here or bad weather in Argentina?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it really has right? It was
the Midwest, actually.
It had a bad winter.
Yeah.
Bad summer?
Well, drought conditions.
Yeah, okay. So there you go. So
yeah.
Shoots up. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the price shot up a lot. So I went over, became one of the youngest full members at the Board of Trade and became trading soybean futures, which, if any of your listeners know the different pits, the soybean pit, it's in the grain room at the Board of Trade, but it has its own kind of language too. It takes, I'd say about a month to really get accustomed to the fact they kind of, there's certain pit trading language used, 4-bit at 5 and everything.
Sure.
And you can go from pit to pit, except for in that pit. They do things a little bit differently to kind of keep out competition.
It's like politics. You have to know the language in order to fit in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, every guild has their own built-in handshake and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Was that something you enjoyed? Did it work out for you?
Oh, I love it. It's one of the greatest jobs in the business.
No beans about it, huh?
Yeah, no beans about it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, so some of your clients, ADM, those kind of guys, were you?
I was a market maker, so no clients.
Oh, okay, so I see. I understand. So
and that's the story of the career too. So if you look at a trading pit, there's a rail near the top.
Yep.
If you stand outside that rail, you're a broker, and you deal with the ADMs and the car
You're
guilds.
representing a big client usually or something.
Yeah, and then you basically just trade for that. You trade the paper. They get all the paper orders to come in, the phones, and they hand them to them.
Sure, not anymore, but they did that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is a little different now.
Mm-hmm.
But on my end, on the inside of the pit, you're a market maker, and so you can only trade for yourself, your company. You trade one account, and you're there to provide a liquid market.
I understand.
And the brokers come in. They might have, let's say, they have 1,000 contracts to sell. Well, if there are 5 people that all want to buy it, then they'll go to 5. They'll say 200, 200, 200, 200, 200, and they'll split it. They can give it to all. They want to help their buddy.
They could give to one person if they wanted. Right?
Yeah, they choose, but they most times like to spread it around, and every now and then they'll help their friend.
Sure.
So
there is no insider trading, but there is some insider trading in the sense that you can help your pals out if they need a bigger block to be moved.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is it pays to not make enemies down there.
Oh, you got to have relationships.
Because nobody wants to trade with you.
You got to have relationships. It's like in place else, right? Yeah.
Because they can look past you. And when there were people there that got ostracized for doing something stupid or being a jerk, and I mean, people just look past them like they didn't exist. And and that's it. You're done down there if that happens.
You've lost your street cred. Then.
Yeah.
So you leave Chicago.
Yes.
And head back to Arizona. I came to Arizona. Mm-hmm. What was about Arizona that made you come here?
You know, it was. Well, think about the timing. It was October, and I knew another brutal winter was coming. That was one.
Yeah.
And when I was starting Echo Trade, in the story I started with a dozen traders. One of the biggest traders in the country was trading from Scottsdale. Actually,
what kind of trading was he doing? Was he grains or what?
No, it was all equities.
Equities. Okay.
Yeah, he was trading equities.
And who was that?
Well, I don't want to say his name.
Okay.
Because he's still up there. He's a good guy. I still talk to him.
Did he contribute to your campaign?
No, he's not contributed to the campaign yet.
Let's just shout out to Mr. Scottsdale. Come on, step up.
Yeah, I know. You know, I've been so busy, I forgot I should go talk to him about it.
I would think so.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
All right. So you joined forces with his firm, or he helped you start a firm?
I just brought him on as one of the first traders.
Okay.
To start a firm like this, you need to go to the exchange with a minimum level of volume.
And a minimum capitalization, right?
Then capital, too,
and what was it, $1 million at that time, or how was
it? It was more than that, but yeah, roughly. Okay. That could be the bare minimum. You had to have more.
Well, they're trying to protect your customers, right? You can make up any losses.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
But then you also have to go in doing a minimum level of trades.
Sure.
And so what I needed to do was I had to go around.
You had to have volume.
Yeah, I had the volume.
Okay.
And they give you tiers, and the way anything inside this business works is you have volume. If you do this much volume, here's your rate. This much, you do this much rate. And there are certain volume tiers you have to hit to make the business profitable, basically. And so you also need...
You need some margin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, I had to go around different parts of the country and basically woo big traders saying, hey, come join me.
And what was the pitch? Why should they come to Arizona with Jeff DeWitt's new firm?
Well, and the basic pitch was, we're going to do it better. And I was building better software. Early on, I mean, it wasn't easy.
I can imagine.
And I had more people say no than yes.
Where they are. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Why would they change?
The thing that I had helping me was that
the technology.
Well, the technology and the technology at the competitors at the time were struggling. They were crashing. This industry coming off the floor was in its infancy in many respects.
This is late
90s.
So a lot of industries had not fully automated their business processes, which is, of course, my background was in contact software, sales information software, or contact management. So I know exactly what you're speaking of. They were primitive systems,
right?
And Bloomberg got his start with the same thing, delivering the Bloomberg boxes, right? Because nobody had a way to aggregate all the data that you needed to be a trader.
Yeah.
So he gets to be a billionaire, and you get to be a billionaire too. No, not quite. Maybe.
I know. And I'll go back to when I was a broker, and we had one of the first Bloomberg terminals. Those things were, I think, $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
That people would pay him, and
because they were making money with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was so expensive.
Folks, for you don't know, that's the former mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg. That's how he made his money.
Yeah.
Was delivering information.
And his machine, he'd swap out the keyboard. His own. He had his custom keyboard. It had different colored buttons and would do certain things. It's amazing because you would go and we had one per office. And we had hundreds of people that would share one Bloomberg terminal, and you had to kind of request your time to use this thing, and it would give you simple, charts and ways to find stocks. That is archaic compared to what's available to anyone on the internet for free these days.
Sure.
But back, the early 90s.
Back then, that's what mattered.
It was, wow, look what that thing can do. It was impressive what he put together. And I don't think he had any competition. That's why he could charge over $4,000 a month.
Well, Reuters was out there in the Dow Jones services, but I don't think they understood where it was going. They weren't looking far enough ahead. But your firm got a Bloomberg box early on with Echo Trading?
We never had a Bloomberg. Well, no, I'm sorry. We did have Bloomberg later. We did not have a Bloomberg when we started.
I was going to say, I was thinking maybe that's what got the traders to come in to work for your Echo Security.
No, by the late 90s, a lot of other places were replicating what Bloomberg. He did kind of start it, but I do remember the early 2000s. We had a group of New York traders join us, and one of the requirements for them was that I'd get them a Bloomberg. So I did have Bloomberg terminals later in the business.
Well, I thought I understood, and maybe I misread some of your background, was that you actually wrote some software, you helped a program. Okay. So just for my information, and nobody else, I don't care. You're not a programmer by trade, but you knew what you wanted in the application, and you worked with a programmer. Is that how you did it?
I can program.
Okay.
And what I would do is I had two programmers working underneath me. They would do the nitty gritty. I can read and write code.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
Well, because they're putting in a new accounting system or whatever, handling of the investments at the state treasurer's office, as I understand it. They've approved the money. So it would be useful for someone who actually understands the guts, which is, the programming calls and system calls and all that, which is really down the level. But so that would benefit you if, in fact, things went wrong, which software always has a few bugs in it. So great. So I want to bring that out, that was part of your background.
And the main thing with trading software is the speed. If you know any software you use, even on these computers here, if you open Microsoft Word, terrible example.
Yeah.
If it takes a half a second or a second to open or do something, it's not the end of the world. But in the trading world, if you push a button and it thinks about it for even a quarter second before it does something.
Too long.
You've
lost your trade, basically. You lost your advantage.
Right.
So that brings me to another question that is a little bit in the weeds, but we're
pretty far in the weeds technically. I'm pretty sure there's about 3 programmers watching, and everyone else is on to something else.
You might be right, but this kind of, I think, actually, because people don't know who they're going to vote for. There's a lot of undecided out there. And to me, and I asked the same questions of my other 2 candidates, is give me some substance that people can really chew on to decide who they want for the candidate, who they want to vote for. So I think you've proven you got the background, and it's not just I say I did it. You're out there. So Echo Trading was great, and it went forward, and everything's wonderful. Then you sold it, or is it still up and running, or what's?
Nope. We sold it end of last summer, and so I've been a full-time campaigner.
So family life. You have a family life.
I do. Here, we can show everybody here on the back of this.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, there. That's a pretty good picture.
It's like shining, but the lights.
It's way up there, so it's hard.
Go to my website.
Anyway.
So I do.
So at what point in your successful path to from the financial world did you decide to find a partner in life.
Well, I'll tell you something interesting about my wife, and she's watching this right now.
Hello.
I assume my daughters are watching too. So hello,
they better
girls.
be, or they're unless they're in school already.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. My one daughter actually did start. So I have two daughters watching because they were just in camp, and one daughter actually did start a couple days ago. So
okay.
Yeah, I met my wife Marina actually when I was still in college, but we didn't get married for a long time, and we were actually best friends through the whole 90s and early 2000s. But I've known her since 1992.
Wow.
So she's known me before I ever even started in the business, and I've been doing this for 21 years. So it is kind of neat, and I've always known that I wanted to marry her. It just took me a while to sell her on the idea, I think.
A guy who's in your business and you couldn't close the deal on
I know.
Well, good for you. So when did you get married?
Well, there's no way I was going to drag her to Chicago.
Yeah, is she Southern California girl too?
Yeah.
Well,
well, actually, originally, she came here from the Ukraine originally.
Really?
She had been here for about 6 months when I met her. Her whole family emigrated here from the Ukraine.
Did they were they forced out by the Russians, or what was their story?
No, it was her father's dream. Yeah, and they did it the right way. They waited for years on the list, and
like
their
my
number came up.
sister-in-law from China. Yeah. And we're going to put everybody in the front of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, don't get me started on the immigration thing.
I know,
and I'm sure she's has strong feelings about it too, because she did it the right way.
Right.
What's wrong with coming in the front door, America?
I know.
There's nothing wrong with it, actually. Well, good for her and good for her family. So, okay, get married, you got a nice family, and everything's going along great, and you decide, you know what, I've sold my business, looked at maybe having a new challenge. You said there's something you'd like to do for the state of Arizona. In the treasurer's office, what do you think are the biggest challenges for Arizona for the new treasurer coming in?
You touched on one, and that's the technology. The technology is archaic, to say the least. And that's one of the main things I talk about in the campaign trail is 14 years as CEO of EchoTrade. We lived on the extreme cutting edge of financial technology.
Right.
That is how you grow. That's how you survive. And that's how you're judged by traders. In our main market, we didn't market to the general public, EchoTrade. We marketed to exchange floor traders. If you look at the pictures of the exchange floor in the 90s, packed with people.
No, it's empty now.
Empty now.
Yep.
A lot of those people are still in the business, still doing it. They're doing it off the floor via computer. I mean, if you stand down there your whole career, you start in your 20s, there were guys in their mid-50s getting knee replacements and things from just standing, getting bumped and jostled.
No kidding.
Yeah. And it was pretty common. I knew some guys by early 50s that had gone for the knee replacements. And so very popular, obviously, to keep doing what you're doing, save money because the cost to stand on the floor is more expensive than to be off the floor, and do it via computer. So that's it. We started marketing, and when someone would leave the floor, they would go to us and a couple other firms, and they'd say, and the main sales pitch was the software, what we could give them to help them make money, and that's it. And so, building that, and you have to be on the extreme cutting edge, and that's how we grew so large was having the best technology. So what I can do in the treasurer's office with that would revolutionize what we're doing down there. And
well, can you get the money to do? I mean, the Arizona's, let's be fair, the budget is in tough shape.
Yeah.
Do we have the money to do the technology things you envision for the office?
Well, okay, there's two sides to the office. There's the accounting side and the investment side. And the accounting side's already being upgraded. It's already done.
The money's there.
The money's already happening as we speak. So the new treasurer is going to come in, and it's basically going to already be done when it gets there. Now, on the investment side, we can actually save money by upgrading what we have done there. And it's similar to the fact that, if you swap out a $4,000 Bloomberg terminal for something that costs hundreds of dollars and does the same or more, then you're saving money and you're actually making things better at the same time. So that's what I can bring is to upgrade what's there. There's so many other options out there than even what we're using, and a lot of the investments are being run on Excel spreadsheets. But the cost, like almost any business, the costs have come way, way down to get really good, top-notch trading tools and investment tools.
You mean free enterprise has driven down the cost of delivering a service or a
Shocker,
product?
Isn't it?
Can't we do that with healthcare?
Mm-hmm.
No, we couldn't do that.
I know.
Let's protect big pharma and the big insurance companies and have anyway. It's amazing. Obama ran as the populist, for the little guy thing, and Wall Street gets sometimes unfairly blamed. I mean, Goldman Sachs with their high-speed trading thing and how they're working on nanoseconds which to me is not really free enterprise, but another issue. Maybe we'll have someone on from Goldman Sachs sometime. But you started your own firm,
right?
You went out and competed against the big guys, and you had to do it with grit and gristle and determination. It was still possible for you to do it in a free enterprise system. I'm concerned about that is going away because of the type of things that are happening regulatorily, where the big guys can afford the attorneys and the accountants and everybody to play by the rules, and the little person coming along can't overcome that barrier because it costs so much money to get. So back to the state government. So you say you think it won't cost a lot of money to do the upgrades you envision. I mean, it'll cost some, but it won't be millions and millions of dollars.
No, nothing. I mean, it should save us money. You don't pay. You don't. It's a lot of it's just swapping out what you're using to do the decision making.
Since you were in the high speed trading environment as in the private sector, is it applicable in the sense, the folks out there listening, well, geez, those are pension funds and these are this, that, and the other thing, is the same type of, what would be your trading philosophy? Or can you tell us how you would, what your investment philosophy, and isn't there not a state board that you work with on some investing or not? There's some other players, or is the treasurer get the sole responsibility for putting money in different places?
It's funny. It depends on which candidate you ask.
Okay.
And because I know one of my opponent's things is to say, well, we don't need someone that knows investments because there's a board. Well, the board meets once a month for roughly 45 minutes.
And they're an oversight board, basically?
They're just an oversight board. Mm-hmm. How's everything going? They meet, they look at, and that's it. And so they're not handling the day-to-day operations. The treasurer is tasked with handling the day-to-day operations and overseeing the functions of the office. And so it absolutely, I think it should be required, quite frankly, of our state treasurer that he have a securities license.
But that would exclude a lot of people then. I mean,
it would exclude a lot of politicians is what it would exclude.
All right, but it's okay. But again, this is back to, I understand your bias. I have a different bias. I mean, I ran for assessor because I had a background in real estate and technology, and I think that, yes, I believe that was required. I should know something about real estate before becoming the assessor.
Exactly.
I understand, but the way our system of government works is we are populist. We're kind of meritocracy, and if you win, you win. I understand.
But how about for attorney general? We require our attorney general to be a lawyer.
Well, that's the toughest guild in America. That's because they've got the tightest union in America. That's why. But how many of them get kicked out?
I think if I were running for attorney general, it would be completely absurd. Having a 21-year financial background, I wouldn't want to be the attorney general, but I wouldn't even think of running for attorney general.
Yeah, you're right. It's highly specialized, and you're right. There is a good argument to be made that a Security 7 license probably should be the minimum. But here we are today. So technology you just mentioned, and your trading philosophy. Since the board doesn't really do, they just oversight. They're just saying, are we? We're not investing in. Oh, I don't know, Bernie Madoff futures. How long will he be in jail? Anyway, what's the put? What's the put on that? Anyway, how would you run it, and how is it being run now? And do you see how you'd make a difference? What you do different?
Well, the same two rules apply when you are in this business for 21 years. It's not the first rule is minimizing risk. It is about how can I invest in the markets in a lowest risk form possible and still get a return? That's it. That's how you survive in the business for as long as I have. That's the whole thesis behind everything we did at Equitrade. It wasn't about how do you make the most money. It's how do you participate as much as possible in the markets, having as low of risk as possible.
Now, there are some qualifiers, I assume, in statute, as you like I was making the Bernie Madoff regard. Yeah. But are there some things you cannot invest in? You're not allowed to.
Absolutely, yeah. And the number one thing, that's what I was getting to, is the number one rule at the treasurer's office is safety. Safety of the money. We can't lose money. And that is number one goal. That's what I've been doing for 21 years. The entire...
Maintaining your principle.
That's it.
Okay.
Don't lose. If you figure out in the business how not to lose, you will make money. The first thing, and it's funny, this is how I would teach people when I brought them into the business too, is the first thing we're going to teach you is how to not lose money. That's your goal. Don't lose.
We don't care. Is one.
That's it. We don't care if you win. We just care if you lose.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many times we've said that. And so it's very, very applicable. It's safety before liquidity before yield. As a state office.
Say that slowly. Safety.
Oh, sorry. Safety before liquidity before yield.
Okay.
And so the next thing is we need to be liquid. All of our investments have to be somewhat liquid because there's a cash flow requirement.
Bills to pay, right?
Yeah, bills to pay. And it fluctuates day to day. Yeah. So we have to have things we're not going to be locked up. And we're going to be, easy access to the capital and have daily access to the capital for any needs that come up. and then yield. So once you pass the safety and liquidity test, then you can look for yield. And as long as we stick to that, then we know we're going to be okay. The times we've strayed from that are the times we lost $100 million in Lehman bonds and these other things. So sticking to that relationship is key. And that's something that it's funny to me being in this business, because so many people think they can do this business. And you've had the case of people that would quit their job and they'd go lose all the money in the markets and
go back to work.
Yeah. And which is why, every firm in the business is required to have a risk disclosure that says, if you touch a stock, you could lose everything. You could lose all your money. And it's funny because the main thing you talked about early on, my opponent's hitting me on, he's hitting me on a disclosure that was on my firm's website.
That's required to be put there by the SEC.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, go look at Scottrade, go look at Merrill Lynch, go look at any firm. In the fact that he's going to run for this office and he doesn't know that if you invest in the markets, you could lose money. And that's it says here you could lose money. Of course you can. You're in the markets. Anybody can lose money. It's a risk disclosure. So
understood.
Yeah.
Well, it's tough because and this is I'm sitting from the place of the average voter, who's a Republican conservative, let's say, and who's going to vote in this primary. I don't think they have a lot of context as to how to decide who should be the next treasurer.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to tease out of everybody who comes in front and sits at the microphone is do you get a good feeling for the character of the person who's talking to me today? Mm-hmm. And if you do, that's the person you should vote for, because you already know they're Republican. You know they're conservative. They're successful in business, relatively speaking. You have one who's been elected was mayor, and so Hugh Hallman has been a mayor and so on. So, okay, but would you trust this person with your money? Because really, when it comes down to it, that's what it is.
Right.
We know you're going to pay the bills. We know you're going to follow the law. So it's just a matter of, and you said it quite eloquently, I thought, with the three steps, which were
safety before liquidity before yield.
Yeah, that's a terrific way of looking at it, if you ask me. And I wish I would have had a broker like you 21 years ago, but I didn't. Okay, of course you didn't do retail brokerage anyway, right? You weren't working with individual investors.
No, only my first 3 years back in the early 90s.
Yeah, back when you got started,
and that's it.
Okay, so you have you have two things. You have an investment philosophy, and then you have cash management, because it is short-term money. A lot of it is going out the next day. You've got to write checks and meet the state payroll, and whatever bills we have. So stepping back for a second, doing the functions of the office doesn't sound like it'll be a big problem, at least based on what you've told me. But the state is not in terrific financial condition.
Correct.
It's once every 80 years, the United States and other advanced countries decide to spend way too much money, get way over leveraged, and people think, well, this is a normal recession. It's not. This is a balance sheet recession. It's caused by debt, not by inflation, which normally causes a recession, and you have the curve, the cycle, I should say. I am of the opinion it takes about 10 years to come out of a balance sheet recession. The 1932 was the bottom of the stock market. It hit 60. I think that's the trading day. It ended at 60. Can you imagine?
I know.
And seriously, I thought, for a while in 2008, we might hit 6. We did hit 6,000. I thought it might go to 1,500. I was one of those running for the hills. And if it had, that would have been very interesting. And I think, and I'd like your opinion on this. Did you think the TARP on balance was a good thing to do at the time that it happened?
I really am never for using taxpayer money to bail out private businesses. I just don't think it's a good idea. I think there's always a way around that. So,
what was the way out? I mean, we had all the biggest banks in the United States that overinvested these stupid securities, this CBO.
But if we bail them out, they're going to keep doing that.
Well, that's the thing. Have we just pushed the pain down the road,
right?
Or can over time can they rebuild their liquidity with the Treasury spreads they're working on with the federal funds rate? Now here we're in the weeds more, but
this is what bothers me.
Reliquifying the banks through the taxpayers, right?
Well, yeah, and this is what bothers me about it is they took extra risk so they would make more money.
Absolutely.
But when they lost on that bet, we had to bail them out. We didn't share, and I say we collectively as taxpayers.
Sure.
We didn't share on the upside of that investment, but we took the downside. Now, if
they privatize the profits and socialize the losses,
right?
Yeah.
No, I think that's terrible. It should never.
But was there another way? I mean, I know you weren't sitting at the table at the time with Henry Paulson and all the guys saying, "What the hell are we going to do?" But was there another way out?
I do believe there are other. There's been a lot of analysis since that time, and people have written books on the subject. And it's all theory. it's all theory because we went down one path, and
here we are.
Right.
With slow growth, basically no growth, 100 million people unemployed.
Right.
Or disemployed, I guess is the right word. And the White House touting, unemployment's 6%. Yeah, well, nobody's working, so or is in the market.
Mm-hmm. The way I've heard it explained, and this maybe gets it back out of the weeds a little bit, is the other solutions were the equivalent to ripping a Band-Aid off quickly.
Right.
And what we
just
did
go through the pain.
We chose the path of just tearing it slowly. But either way,
it's still painful.
And you're going to end up in the same place. And so
are you forecasting here for us that you think there'll be a marked correction in the stock market because of the debt? Or are you just saying the United States is going to have to reckon with slow growth, like I think, for quite a long time?
It's a tough one to put forward because there are two different theories out there. There's the theory that whenever we stop printing all this money and we get around to finally raising interest rates, that could obviously cause the markets to go down. The other theory is that because we've printed so much money and inflation is now catching up with us.
Sure it is.
That the stock market could go crazy on the upside just because of pure inflationary measures.
Because the stock goes up with the inflation rate.
Right.
I mean, the stock market can.
Right. And so it's going to be an inflation versus economy battle. Obviously, inflation is not good overall for an economy. And
but the Fed targets 3%. I mean, that's what they're shooting for, correct, right now?
Those numbers, I think we've all
Are
learned.
The numbers real?
No, I don't believe. I think the numbers are whatever they want them to be.
Well, this is the thing. Gas has doubled in price in 4 years.
Right.
Beef is at an all-time high.
Yep.
Chicken is at an all-time high.
I think I read beef is up 57% on the year.
Yeah, it's never been anywhere.
And the government is telling us there's no inflation or little inflation?
Because they exclude food and energy. That's too volatile.
Right.
I mean, it's just
what other? I mean, how much of our budget do we all spend on food and energy?
And the less money you make,
right?
If you're on the poorer end of the scale, is food and energy.
Right.
That's how you live.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand. Plus, the one thing that, and folks, you should out there listening to this, taxes are not included in the CPI. When taxes go up, that's not considered an inflationary number, which to me is just obviously political gamemanship. So, we're going to make it look good because we're not going to count it. So it's false. Okay, so if you were the state treasurer, knowing what you know and knowing what you see out there, obviously you have these prudent investment rules. So is the strategy then for the state to try to let's be the first one out of the problem, or I mean, how do you manage that?
Here's what and this is something else I talk about on the trail. This is the other thing I want to do that I think would help all of us to see the solutions. Is I want to expand the transparency of the office because. Dean Martin created the open checkbook, and Doug Ducey expanded that. He did a great job. So if you go on the Treasurer's website right now, you can see what's called the open checkbook, and you can see all the transactions that happen. But it's a little hard for the average person to see exactly. It's pretty tough to see exactly where Arizona's money is going. If you were a CPA firm and you really wanted to get to the bottom of it, you could. We're transparent in that fashion. But I want to take it to the next level where I give balance sheet style reports to everybody. So what if you before our radio show could print off 3 pages with little, I mean, in the financial world, we when you go to buy a stock, you don't look at a long list of numbers, you look at a chart, right? With little volume bars below it.
Sure.
That's what I want to give to Arizona. See, let's put it all in pretty pictures and charts and everything.
Just like I get from my Charles Schwab broker.
Right, exactly. Why is our state not giving us that right now? And that's what I want to give to us, is a way to see exactly where the money's going. Because if you could sit across from our state senators or state legislators or anyone else and say, why are we spending more on X and less on Y? And actually have that proof in your hands. That's how we're going to clean our state up. There's still a lot of waste. There's no way around it. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of money being directed. There's the Obamacare Medicaid expansion that got passed is very costly to our state. And
no, but okay, the opponents say, nope, it's saving us money because we're getting it free money from the federal government for 3 years anyway, which helps us out.
Just makes my hair stand up to hear free money from the federal government. You're right. Both of my opponents are saying that it was a great thing, and I'm the only one. It's shocking in Republican circles because Republicans as a whole are very, very against the Obamacare expansion. But my 2 opponents in the Republican primary both are for it, and one of those reasons is, as you said, because they say, well, it's free money from the federal government. Why should we turn that down? And my answer is, Oh, I'm sorry. Do we not also pay federal income taxes?
The money comes from somewhere.
Right.
Well, no, we don't pay it. We borrow it.
It's
I
crazy.
mean, really, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Instead of paying for current consumption, we're borrowing our current consumption
Absolutely.
every day at the federal level.
Well, all of my 3 daughters now owe over $60,000 of federal debt. That's their, and it's going to, by the time they start working, I'm sure it's going to be over $100,000.
Well, and we have eventually, as an investment professional, as your background, we both know we have a crisis that's coming between generations.
Yeah.
Because our kids are going to say, wait a second, I'm paying for Social Security for the guy who spent $18 trillion that we didn't have, and the debt service is $600 billion. And wait, ho!
Yeah.
You know, I got to make a living and raise a family too. I don't see how they're going to be able to square that.
And that's, and another thing I talk about, what really bothers me about that is we're living right now on the backs of our children. We get a vote, they don't. If we're going to spend their money, they should get a vote then. We should ask them, hey, do you want us to spend all your money before you are even old enough to do anything about it? And it bothers me that we're doing that. To spend the money of someone that has no say in it is awful. So that, the number one job of the state treasurer is protecting Arizona taxpayers. If you summed it up in one concise statement, it's protecting Arizona taxpayers. And I'm the only one qualified to do that in the private sector. And I'm the only one living that on the campaign trail. And that's the perfect example is, trust me when I tell you, even if you're out there and you think that the Obamacare Medicaid expansion was a good thing, you want your treasurer against it. Because the last thing you want is somebody in charge of the checkbook of Arizona that agrees with expanding handouts and giving out money, because there won't be any Arizona taxpayer money left to protect in the end. So we want somebody in that seat that is a true fiscal conservative, and I am that. I am the only fiscal conservative in this race. As you know, Hugh Hallman is not only for the Obamacare Medicaid expansion, he's for Common Core, he's raised property taxes, he has a whole plethora of things. He's rated right now a champion of big government, as if we want that as in the seat, holding all the purse strings for Arizona, someone that's rated by AFP as a champion of big government. So there's a lot of reasons why that make me the best candidate. But I also understand, though, when you go through the rigors of a campaign trail, and put 35,000 miles on my car, and
it's a big state.
Yeah, and totaled it now. I don't know if you know, a couple weeks ago I got totaled on the 17, so my car isn't even around anymore. So you saw the one I just got.
Probably one of your opponents sent out a car and just kidding, Hugh, just kidding, Randy. Well, yeah, you have to travel, and of course, it is more difficult the first time you run for political office to run for statewide office.
Oh yeah,
because there is a learning curve. Let's face it, just like in brokerage.
If I could do the last 6 months over, I could be a lot more effective, as you said, because you learn so much doing this. I mean, I am a newcomer to politics, and I even got tricked. There were a few times that they played some tricks, and some events got changed, and I was purposely not notified, and I showed up at the wrong place at the wrong time, and like,
no
okay,
kidding, right.
Yeah, I know. So there, you fall for things. You fall for things when you're getting your feet wet in this.
I gotcha. Well, let's talk about the state debt. I know it's pretty substantial. Do you think, what are we going to do to handle it? We have a legislature that is basically both feet in cement on not raising taxes. Although a couple of the candidates for governor have said, well, we should phase out the income tax and maybe go for a broader expansion of a consumption tax. And I'm not asking you what policy position you would promote necessarily, but taxes are necessary. Which ones do you think are the most harmful to growing an economy versus ones that are more benign?
I'm not a fan of any tax, I will tell you, because I think the government gets enough of our money. And I think the government needs to learn how to better spend it. So any tax that goes through has to be net lower. And so if they're going to shift from one to another, if you're going to shift from income tax to something else, the net still needs to go down. The last thing we want anyone doing is pushing through a policy where by reducing one, you increase the other by more than you're reducing the other one. And so
you're concerned that's what would happen?
No, I'm just saying.
Just philosophically.
Just philosophically, yeah.
See. Okay.
No, I haven't heard anybody say that. But once you get the legislature involved and whoever wins and whatever policy,
and there are spending lobbies in this state. Yeah.
There are,
yeah. And
everybody, what you see in politics is, even with endorsements, it's paybacks for previous payoffs are a lot of endorsements, and there's so much. It's a dirty business, honestly.
Yeah. It's dirty in the sense that Well, I mean, but
when you see it from this side too, I know so much more about our state than I did when I got into this, and it makes you sick. It does. It just I hope I get a chance to go in and at least be one beacon of light for doing things right down there. But there are other people running that would be great, and that's the other thing you see on the trail. I see candidates that I go, wow, that person would be great.
So have you endorsed anybody in those other races?
Who wants my endorsement? Who am I to endorse?
Well, I'm just curious. If you want, this is your chance. You're on the air. If you want to endorse somebody, you're welcome to do it. We're open to anything you want. And speaking of endorsements, then why don't we bring up? Do you have some endorsements of people who say you should be the next treasurer?
Yeah, I just got the Arizona Right to Life endorsement. Very happy about that. And I got Arizona Free Enterprise Club. And the Free Enterprise Club is one of those organizations that really wants free markets, limited government. I mean, everything
like
I
the
stand for.
Club for Growth.
Exactly.
Pretty close.
That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. And so I've done, Senator Kelly Ward's endorsed me, and she's one of the biggest Obamacare fighters we have because of how strongly I'm against Obamacare. And, here's the way to sum it up. I am for anything that grows the economy because the number one thing we could do in Arizona to fix almost every problem we have, from the debt problem to everything else, is growing our economy and bringing in jobs.
Sure, growing the top line, sales solves every problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with the same
We
opinion
get companies to start relocating here and bringing thousands of jobs with them, and we do it to Pinal County and Mojave County and all over the state. We get companies in here, we are going to boom.
Well, what's the biggest barrier?
Our tax structure.
Really?
Absolutely, it's our tax
structure.
Well,
they're reducing the corporate taxes over the next 3 or 4 years, so it's going down.
It is going down, and that's been proven. I got to sit at a dinner. Gosh, this probably goes back 3 months now. I got to sit next to, and just my stroke of luck, Grover Norquist, if you know him.
I do, sure.
One of the biggest. Yeah. So,
well, if you're an insider, sorry, folks. Yeah. He's the guy that stands in Washington and says no to new taxes no matter what they do.
Yeah. And it was really neat to sit next to him. And I was geeking out, if that's a proper way to say it.
Sure.
Of sitting next to him. And I got to.
He's a rock star in the tax
world. Oh,
absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I peppered him for an hour, and I felt bad for anybody else around because I monopolized.
But he loves talking that shop.
Great guy. I'm sure he super nice guy. Yeah. And but he, I asked him that question. I said, what could we do? What's the best thing? And he did say, as long as companies can see, you don't have to get your income tax all the way to zero for them to come. But if they see you're on the right path, the studies have proven that as long as we are lowering taxes and we're showing that we want to get to that, we want to grow the economy, we could get companies to come here. And it is by far the best thing that we could do. There are governor candidates out there that are talking about taking the income tax to zero. And I know, it gets poo-pooed a lot by the others that don't support that by saying, well, we can't afford that, and we have to make
$4 billion if we got rid of it.
But again, there are ways to stage it, and you stage it and you write in where you say, okay, well, we're not going to reduce it past this level until the economy and the growth more than makes up for it. Then we stage it down again. And there are ways to do it the right way, I think, without just lumping off $4 billion and jumping into the abyss and not knowing exactly if it's going to turn around, because we have to get those companies here. But if we are just taking it in that direction, and if companies know that's our goal, if we get enough of them here, we're going to keep moving that direction more and more, we can get them to come. That's what's been proven. But the states that are surviving the recession the best and are booming are the no income tax states. That's unquestionable. Look at Texas and these other states and Washington. I mean, they have the big business. That's everyone wants to be in Texas right now, and they're killing us. So I've said it before. I said I want to mess with Texas. When it comes to business, I'm going to mess with Texas.
Governor Perry might have a fight with that.
But we need to get them to stop flying over our heads. Landing in Texas when they leave California. I mean, California is destroying their business climate.
Well, that's why I laughed. I could see it falling into the ocean without physically doing it.
Right.
It's actually it's destroying the middle class day by day, and it's going to be people who have a lot of money living on the coast, and then the rest,
right,
who can't afford homes and they just can't afford to live there. And I suppose a lot of people will be happy just living subsistence lives because the weather's so nice.
Right.
Hey, it ain't it's just. It's a disaster, there's no question. Jerry Brown, of course, says it's all coming back. We have a few minutes left in the show. I know there are a couple of people who said they want to call in and ask questions. If this is your chance, I'll see if I can get you on the air. Bear with me. If you want to call in, 480-745-1033 is the number to call in. And if you have a question you want to ask my guest, Jeff Dewit, you're welcome to at this moment. We have about 5 minutes left in the show, and we'll take 1 or 2 calls. If, in fact, people have with bated breath been waiting to call in, 1033. Next week, Diane Douglas is my
very
guest.
good. Very good.
And the week after that, the unsinkable Christine Jones will be calling in.
Let me tell you my Diane Douglas joke while we're waiting.
Sure.
She says a lot, and I like her a lot. I'm a big fan. And I see her all over the place. She's a really hard worker. But
she's the Energizer Bunny.
Oh, yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She's great. And one of the things she'll say in her speech is she says, I believe, President Obama said, if you like your doctor, you should be able to keep your doctor. If you like your health care, you should be able to keep your health care. And then she says, I think if you like your child's education, you should be able to keep your child's education. And I spoke after her a couple months ago up in Prescott, and I was sitting there thinking, I need one of those for this race. And so I came up with one, and I love it. So when I go after her now and she says that, I say, here's the one for the treasurer's race that I believe. I think if you like your money, you should be able to keep your money.
Well,
so that was inspired by Diane.
Yes. Well, good. Well, she'll be on next week, and she plans to be in studio, so we'll have video too.
She'll be here. She's everywhere too.
Well, I tell you what, we're pretty much to the bottom of our hour, and I guess the person. Let me see. Wait a second. They might have texted me.
Oh.
Let's see if we got we do have a couple messages here, so let's just see.
All right.
If someone sent in something that, and maybe you have something there that somebody remarked that you missed, so you can check yours. Well, that's from my charter school. They're okay. Oh, here we go. There has been a little bit of kerfluffle at a couple of the events where it got a little bit heated.
Our race, I like to say, we don't have debates. We put on a show.
Okay.
we are the best ticket in town. If you want some entertainment, come see a treasurer's debate because we put on a show.
Which normally doesn't. Well, although I would say the Tom Horn race has gotten a little bit exciting too. So, is there anything you want to say about that particular exchange? I guess it was at one of them that was over the campaign ads or something.
Which one? Are you talking about that wasn't on TV? That was the one we just had up there.
Yeah.
It
was reported anyway. So
was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's politics, I guess. It's I have an
Are
opponent.
you saying you were not expecting for people to lie about your record? Is that what you're saying? Is that what it came down to? Disinformation, maybe?
It's weird when it happens to you. I've always read the paper, and I've been on the outside of this stuff, and you hear a candidate say, well, that's not true, that guy's saying that, and you don't know who to believe.
Yes.
But when you're on this end of it, and you have someone out there saying things that are so gone from reality, you're like, come on, because you know the truth. This is my life. I know where I've been, what I've done, and
sure. But truth is one of those things that is very elusive in politics.
I'm glad now that I think people are seeing through it. And he tried to time it. He could have said this kind of stuff 5 months ago, but he tries to time it where he says all this stuff and puts out these crazy
when
ads.
You don't have time to respond.
Right. Days before the early ballots drop.
That's a good campaign.
Yeah, it's pretty smart, I guess.
It's a surprise attack at the ending.
And he's the longest time politician in the race. In fact, he's pretty much what he is a longtime politician / lawyer, why he wants to even involve himself with the money side of this and handle investments, I don't even know, because he's a lawyer / politician. But yeah, it's pretty slick campaigning, I guess, because he's timing all this. By the time we're able to go and say, no, here's what actually happened, a lot of people have already mailed their ballots in. And I think that's obviously the timing of it. And so it's frustrating. And I just hope people see through it. I think, you
have a lot of faith in the American vote.
Yeah, I know.
The primary voters in this state are pretty good. They do pay attention. So you may be right. We're about ready to wrap up. Why don't you give us your closing and where people can reach you if they want to get in touch, your website and your phone number, whatever you'd like to give out?
Perfect. Yeah, I would invite anyone to go to the website of jeffdewit.com.
And one T.
One T. Yep, right. Yep. And or my Facebook is Jeff DeWitt AZ. My Twitter is Jeff DeWitt AZ. I am the only one, again, qualified to do this in the private sector. I've been doing it for over 21 years. I will be a great treasurer. We are spoiled because we've had 2 really good treasurers in a row. And Doug Ducey, the accounts under his management are at all-time highs. He's done a wonderful job. And I want to do a great job as your treasurer and pass the torch off to someone else. So one thing I like to say in closing, as I'm out there, is just like the word treasurer has 1 T, just like the word technology has 1 T, and just like the word transparency has 1 T, please remember that DeWitt does have 1 T. And you can also think about how much money that will save Arizona, not printing 2 T's.
All right, everybody. There's Jeff DeWitt, my guest today on Pinal Power Players. And we want to thank you all for sitting and listening for the last hour to our conversation. Let me see if I can find my outro here. Jeff, you're going to have to bear with me.
Go for it.
Here it is. And we will run that. And then I will see you all next week with Diane Douglas, 12:30 on Friday. She's candidate for Superintendent of Schools. I am Douglas Wolf, your host of Pinal Power Players and your Pinal County Assessor. God bless America and God bless Pinal County.
God bless you.
Tired of constantly letting your dog...
I hope you enjoyed today's show, where you can always expect to hear the top local, national, international politicians and celebrity guests. KQCK Radio, radio worth watching.
Hi, Marie here for wannasing.com. Are you looking for professional DJ or karaoke services for your next holiday party or get-together? wannasing.com can provide the best in sound, lighting, and a professional MC to host your next event. Whether it be a company party, birthday party, wedding, or any occasion, wannasing.com is ready to provide the fun and make it a night to remember for years to come. Call 480-664-8801. That's 480-664-8801. Mention this radio ad and receive a special discount for your next fun event. wannasing.com. When you visit Hill Family Dentistry in Santan Valley, dentist Dr. Tim Hill provides each patient with personalized, gentle care that you deserve. Our entire team is dedicated to providing you and your family with services that will make you smile. With a full range of general, cosmetic, and specialty dentistry services that will keep you and your family smiling. Our commitment to our community is to provide outstanding oral health. Hill Family Dentistry is located on 36359 Gansell Road in Santan Valley, diagonally across from